So once you've got your Excel application started, we now want to get started working on creating our personal budget. And so one of the first things you have to do or should do when creating a budget is you need to think about what categories you need to budget for and what categories you want to track. So what I recommend doing is first you need to know your income. And we don't have to fill that in right now. And everyone's income is going to be a little bit different. And some of the rest of these things might depend on what your income is. And so we can come back to that. Typically, a lot of people only have one or two sources of income. So you can break those out here or add it all into one line. We can come back to this a little bit later though, because we'll want to talk about income and generating more income later on. But first, we just want to get the basics of a budget going, especially if you don't have a budget or if you're just getting started with developing your own budget. And Excel is a great place to start. You can create your entire budget here and do your tracking here. That's how I originally started doing my budgeting. But there's online budgeting tools that help with this as well. And I'll get into one of the applications that I use to track my own personal budget a little bit later on. But I think it still helps to come into Excel first to get a general overview and outline of what that budgeting tool will end up looking like as well. And so that's where we would just want to use this as kind of an outline on what we want to get started. And so the very first thing, one of the most important things that you should be budgeting for is your rent or mortgage. And depending on where you live and depending on maybe your income as well, your rent or mortgage is going to be vastly different. Your age is also going to play a big factor to this. And so there's different models or approaches you can have. Like you could have a model 1 or model A. Sorry, I keep mistyping. Model 1 and then a model 2. To have different budget models for these different situations. I used to have what if situations, like what if I made more money? You know, what if my income was higher? What if my rent or mortgage was lower? If I wanted to move somewhere and I was looking to reduce my rent costs. So you can just copy and paste what we'll have here, you know, what we're going to build out. You can copy and just paste these into different scenarios. And you'll end up seeing that like your net income or your net take home is at the bottom line here is what we're going to get to. You can see how that will change based on some of these different models and situations. But anyway, if we come back to just our general, well, actually, let's not delete those. Let's just hide those for right now, just to make them less distracting. But your rent and mortgage is obviously one of your most critical expenses, one of your biggest expenses a lot of people are going to have. And we don't have to populate values in here for right now, but we just want to get some of these labels listed out because sometimes that's the hardest thing is what should I be budgeting for? What kind of expenses do I even have? And so reviewing your bank statement is also a good place to start doing this in tandem with this process. That should give you access to what incomes you have and also what your expenses are. And you'll need access to your various credit cards as well. And that's how you'll be able to enter in the amounts here. For our purposes here, I'll just be making up amounts. Like what if our rent is $1,000 a month? This is I typically like to create these in terms of a monthly budget, but you could also do a weekly or bi-weekly if that works better for you. Sometimes it helps just to identify what type. It could be an annual budget, you know, and sometimes I'll do an annual thing over here and you just multiply everything by 12. That's a good way to get an annual budget. Let's just turn these into dollars real quick to make it a little bit easier to look at. We'll get the commas and the decimals. I like to get rid of the decimals because typically you don't really need that. But so anyway, we keep getting distracted. But other very important topics. First is rent. The other things you need to think about what you need to live and some of the other very critical budgets that you might have to live are utilities. And so there's electricity, electricity, there's gas, natural gas payments, electricity, gas, water, sewer, typically on the same bill, but not always. Your garbage bill and recycling, sometimes on the same bill. Those are all key utilities that we want to account for somewhere. You'll want to look at exactly what yours is, but let's just say our electricity maybe is $100 or gas maybe is $150, and these are going to fluctuate sometimes throughout the year as well. Our water and sewer, sometimes that can get expensive. Eli, I don't know where your ball went. Garbage and recycling, usually that's pretty cheap. Mine's probably about 25 bucks a month, so we'll put that in there for now. All right, so those are some of the critical pieces. Let's go ahead and just start doing some small calculations here. We're going to add up all of our expenses, and we're going to add our income and subtract those expenses. So right now, our net income is looking like it's about $600. So we have $600 left over to spend with this very quick and simple budget. Let's extend these formulas over as well, and we can just extrapolate our annual budget for these categories. So now those are the basics. We also need groceries to live and survive. You may want to include a restaurant budget or eating out. You should also probably include, as one of the critical categories, insurance of various sorts. It could be renter's insurance, it could be homeowner's insurance, and you can add in different, this could be your home owners. If you had both a renter's and a homeowner's insurance, for example. Most people probably don't have both, but you might have car insurance or some other type of insurance, and you just plug those amounts in here. I don't know, renter's insurance, I think sometimes was around 110, maybe 80 bucks a month. Car insurance is also somewhere in there, but sometimes people pay a little bit more. We can discuss that in more detail later on as well. And so as you can see, we're getting a little low on cash here. Getting a little low on cash for our monthly budget. And we're only making 1,000. Actually, we don't even have, sorry, I did this wrong. You may have caught that. I put in our rent as our income. That's not right. So what we want to do, let's just redo this sum. We need to take in all of our expenses, and we haven't identified our income. So right now we have expenses of $1,665, so we need at least that much. So let's just say our monthly income is $2,000 at the moment. And we can get, we're going to get into more of those details later on as well. Definitely want to talk more about income streams, and different ways to produce some income streams. So look forward to another video on that. Groceries, this is going to vary for every person. Maybe you're only a single person and you have a smaller grocery bill. Maybe you have a family of 4 or 5 and you have a much larger grocery bill. So this is really going to vary. And this is where that budgeting tool will help you track this, what you're actually spending, because you want to have an idea of what you're actually spending before you can come up with a budget. But I'm just going to plug in $300. That may be a little bit high for some, maybe a little bit low for others. Restaurants, this is kind of more of a luxury type of thing for a lot of people. You may not have room in your budget for restaurants, but let's just put in 50 bucks for now, see where that gets us. We need to add our income into here. And so we have, well, let's do this because we might have multiple income streams. And we need to subtract our expenses. Ooh, so right now we are negative 15 bucks. We can't afford all of this stuff, guys, on our salary or our wage. So we're only off by 15 bucks. So let's just take this down. Let's take our restaurants down a little bit. So we're eating fast food when we do go out to restaurants. And so this is really the basics of getting a budget, a very basic budget. Obviously there's going to be other things you might have in here. Subscriptions, you could have a subscription to Netflix. You could have a subscription to Amazon Prime. You could have a subscription to Costco. You could have a subscription to the golf club. I don't know what other types of subscriptions. There's subscriptions, there's Apple subscriptions, there's subscriptions for everything. So you want to make sure you don't have too many of these if you don't have a lot of room in your budget, right? And so um, I like to account for gifts. You could have birthdays, you could have Christmas gifts, you could have charitable gifts that you want to include in here. So these are just getting the structure in place for all of these items here, because obviously in this model, the simple model, we don't have room for these right now. So we're just going to plug zeros in there. There's probably some other categories we could add in there. How about just fun? Fun and hobbies. Well, hobbies is frequently separate, so um, yeah, you need a line for certain things of fun, and maybe you want to break that out. Sorry, I keep trying to do the keyboard shortcuts here. Um, maybe you want to break out more specifically what hobby or what types of fun you're having. So fun, maybe for the movies. Uh, Maybe fun is what are people going out with friends. You can create a budget for that if you have the room for it. And we, again, don't have the room for it right now at this point. So we're going to just get this all in place because I'm going to share this with you guys as well. And I'll continue to build it out and share a more robust version of it as well if you guys find that helpful. But this is, I think, a really good basic place to get us started. And we'll come back in another video and sync this up with an online tracking tool. And I don't have a bank account that I can show you yet at this point, and credit cards to link up and show you. I'm going to see if I can start getting something going there where I might be able to give you a more real world example. But for right now, I think we're going to keep it at this, keep it short and sweet, and we'll expand on this in a later video. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.